Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Benji-Sales live chat. It's good to be back. It's good to see everybody. How are you doing today? Just getting everything set up here. Sorry about that. Great to see you, everybody. Great to be back today. We got a couple interesting things we can chat about. It hasn't been a crazy news week, but there are a couple things we can break down. NPD is kind of the latest breaking news, but I saw just before I went live that the PlayStation, the Sony acquisition of Bungie is now officially complete. So if you guys want to talk about that, we can talk about that as well. It's now a done deal. Bungie is now officially a first-party Sony PlayStation studio. So we can discuss that if you want. That news literally just broke. I mean, it was announced a while ago this was going to be happening, but it wasn't finalized, right? It was just in the works. Now it's done. It's a done deal. So we can talk about that. I was in a car crash last week, which sucks. I have no car. In a bit of a rough spot right now, to be honest with you. So not all great news on my end. My car is completely totaled. I don't have a car now. It's a bit of a nightmare. Was going through an intersection and someone blasted straight into me, plowed right into me, hit me. Could have went really bad. Luckily, where they hit, it all ended up okay. They hit it towards like the back of my car. So they hit actually like right where my rear tires are. Sent me spinning through an intersection. Was literally just spinning, doing donuts, spinning through it. Luckily, no one else hit me head on as I was spinning, and luckily that car hit me far enough back. Could have went real bad, but luckily I was okay. The drivers in the other car were okay. But it was a bummer. So now I have no car and I don't know what I'm going to do. So my personal life, not great at the moment. But we're here to talk about the video game industry. So what can we talk about today? Like I said, I mentioned off the top, we can talk about Bungie. We can talk about all of that goodness. I'm going to really quick break down the NPD results for you right here, because I have a feeling that's probably going to be the main thing that we talk about today, but we can talk about whatever you want. First of all, if this is your first time ever as part of my live chat, the way it works, it's a stream, it's a show, it's 100% driven by you. Your comments, your questions, you just drop them down into chat, fill it up, and I get to as many questions as I possibly can. Usually stream for about an hour and a half. There's going to be two ways to do that. First of all, of course, there's the free method. You just type a question, whatever you want, pops into chat, and I get to those as many as I can. If you want to guarantee that I get to your question, the way to do that is going to be the super chat option. Type a donation, whatever you want. It alerts me to the super chat, and I get to those immediately. However, don't feel pressured or obligated to donate in super chat. It's just a way to help support me and my channel and guarantee that I get to your question. Okay. Let me really quick, before we start getting on your questions, let me really quick break down these NPD results for you. So first of all, for hardware, in terms of units, the rankings were Nintendo Switch best-selling platform, second was PlayStation 5, and third was Xbox Series S. Now, PlayStation 5 did, or not S, Xbox Series S and X. Though, to be honest, it was mostly S this month because X was really suffering from stock. In terms of revenue, PlayStation 5 led hardware, so it generated the most dollar sales, didn't sell the most units, that went to Switch, but it did generate the most money. One thing to note here too is it looks like PlayStation 5 saw really big growth, so that's good to see. Anyone that was here as part of my live chat last week, I was asked how I thought the consoles were going to shake out, and I had said on this chat I was very confident that PlayStation 5 was going to lead for revenue for the month, and I was right on that. So I did nail that one. I had a really strong feeling that it was going to be your revenue leader, and that's exactly where it came in. So I was happy to get that right. Hardware's, it's decreased year over year in terms of the overall, so that's a bit of a bummer, but hardware's still moving. So that's your hardware results. In terms of software, of course, the big, huge headline here is definitely Elden Ring. Elden Ring has now been the #1 selling game. It was the #1 again in June for 4 of the last 5 months. That's absurd, right? For any game to do that. 4 out of 5 months in a row. That's, first of all, just that, without the second number I'm about to talk about, just that first number. Number one for 4 out of 5 months. That's a stunning result. You almost never see that. But what's even more impressive, it is now in the top 10 best-selling games of all time in NPD by dollar sales, right? We're not talking specifically units here that it's in the top 10, but by dollar sales, so by revenue, it is already, keep in mind how insane this is. This game's only been out for 5 months in the tracking. Came out in February, this is through June. To already break into that top 10 after only 5 months is a mind-blowing result. So holy cow, this game has outperformed anyone's expectations. I think we all thought that Elden Ring was going to perform well, right? I was on the record before it came out saying, I believe this will be the best-selling From Software game ever, beating Dark Souls 3, but I didn't think this, right? This is a whole different level, and I don't think anyone saw this kind of performance coming. Even if you were optimistic, this is even beyond those optimistic numbers. So utterly insane results for Elden Ring. Number 2, Lego Star Wars The Skywalker Saga. Speaking of games performing excellent, that is an incredible result that this game is still number 2. I mean, that's excellent. We know that Skywalker Saga was the fastest selling of the Lego franchise ever, and legs are also excellent. So this thing's just going to keep selling and selling and selling. Great result there. Number 3, Mario Strikers Battle League. I think that's a pretty okay result for where for the type of game it is. Not a lot of strong single player component here, and it's really built around multiplayer. So I think that's a pretty okay result. I wouldn't say it's mind-blowing considering the 2 games ahead of it are both older releases. But keep in mind that Mario Strikers also doesn't include digital, so that is a big factor here too. So I would just say solid. Seems like a solid result for Mario Strikers. Number 4, MLB The Show 22. Number 5, here's another shocker on the list. Not only was Elden Ring a shocker for you, Overwatch. Overwatch jumps into your top 5, and that was driven by the can't remember the name of it, but there's a new pack out where whenever you buy it, you get access to the beta for Overwatch 2. So that shows you, man, I'll tell you what, as much as Overwatch has fallen off in terms of being peak popularity, there is people that don't understand that Overwatch isn't dead. You see that a lot, that people say like no one plays Overwatch. But I mean, this game is definitely still in the top 50 most played games on Xbox right now as we speak. And that's not even factoring stuff like, PC, right, which is its main platform. So let's see really quick because I'm curious. Where's it at on Xbox right now? It's 28. So, I mean, Overwatch is still in the top 28 most played games on Xbox right now. So, that game never, disappeared. It was never, no one cared about Overwatch anymore. It just had decreased, obviously, a lot from its peak. But that shows you interest in Overwatch 2 is extremely high. So, if that game is good and, the content has a good rollout considering it's launching free-to-play, that shows you that Overwatch can still recover and be a huge brand, but they really got to nail Overwatch 2. Number 6, Mario Kart 8, just insane legs. Number 7, Nintendo Switch Sports. Nice to see that still in your top 10. Kirby and the Forgotten Land, again, legging well. That's your number 8. Number 9, Final Fantasy VII Remake. That was primarily driven by the Steam launch on PC. But hey, I love that game, so it's amazing to see it come back and be in your top 10 for the month. Like I said, that's mostly going to be the Steam factor accounting for that. Number 10, Minecraft. Number 11, Call of Duty Vanguard. Number 12, F122. Number 13, Monster Hunter Rise. That rises in the charts due to Sunbreak. Number 14, Demon Slayer. Number 15, Smash Brothers. Number 16, Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes. I'll be honest, not an amazing launch. So let's see if that game charts next month and how it does. But I would say not a super impressive result there, especially considering how slow of a month it was. So, again, lacking digital, but I'm not very impressed by that number. Number 17, Sonic Origins. Number 18, Pokemon Legends Arceus. Number 19, The Quarry. Not great, but not surprising to me. I always thought that game launching at $70 was crazy. So hopefully when the price comes down some, it'll lag decent, because I've heard it's a pretty decent game actually. So hopefully when that price point comes down, that $70 seemed way too much for a game like that, to be honest with you. For a new IP and also horror, I mean, you're gambling, and it's like cinematic horror. It's not like a Dead Space or like what the Callisto Protocol looks like. I always thought that $70 price tag was not good for that game. At number 20, Spider-Man Miles Morales. Okay, that's your main highlights from NPD. We can talk about Bayonetta. We can talk about whatever you want, everyone. So start filling that chat up. I think I did see a super chat off the top. So let me hit that super chat before I start getting into your free questions. Highlander with a 5. Thank you so much, Highlander. Thank you for always being in like every chat and always being so supportive with the super chats. Sorry about your car. At least you were all right. Yeah, no kidding. That's the main thing, right? That's the main thing I thought as soon as it was over. I wasn't thinking like, man, my car's gone now. I was thinking, holy cow, I hope everyone's okay. I'm glad I'm okay. So that's the main thing. Luckily, no one was injured in this accident. It could have been far, far worse considering it happened at an intersection. Other vehicles could have gotten involved. So we got lucky. Luckily, no one was hurt. What does the deal between Microsoft and Netflix mean? As I have no idea what it really means. I haven't seen this. Are we talking about the rumblings? Because there are rumblings, I can tell you, that Netflix wants Microsoft to buy them. But let me see. Is there something else here? Oh, it's an ad agreement. Okay, it's an ad agreement. Okay, I'll be honest with you. I haven't read as much up on this as I should. Because I actually had somehow missed this headline. So I'll have to get back to you on that. There's also been some rumblings that Netflix wants Microsoft to buy them. I don't think that that's going to happen. I don't think, put it this way, do I think that there might be some truth behind that rumblings? I wouldn't be shocked if there was some truth to it. Do I think it's going to happen? No, because Activision was already a big swing for Microsoft. If they also tried to do Netflix, I don't know if I could see them getting approved for that by the government. I know that it's different because that is not gaming, right? That would be a different media acquisition, but it would just be such aggressive acquisitions back to back that I don't know if that would be possible. There are some analysts and stuff that are claiming that they are hearing that Netflix wants that to happen. I don't think it will, though. Now, in terms of like the ad stuff, I will have to read up more on it, Highlander. I'll be honest with you, I completely kind of missed that story. So, yeah, I'll have to read up more on it. I apologize, Highlander. Split End 89 with a 2 super chat. What's up, Split End? Great to see you, man. Saying you are the best. You are the best, Split End. Great to see you, buddy. Thanks for helping moderate the chats, and thanks for being an awesome dude. Hope you're doing well, my friend. All right, let's get into your free questions. Super chats are now cleared. Axiza, Benji, what are the top 10 NPD games of all time? And did Elden Ring sold already more copies than Cyberpunk 2077 at 18 million? Okay, so the top 10 NPD games of all time, I don't think that's ever been publicly released, or if so, not for a very long time. So I don't think we have that public data on exactly what the top 10 is. I could be wrong here, but I don't think so. I don't think there's been a recent one, at least. Maybe they did release one a few years back or something. I'm not sure, but I don't recall that being publicly released in recent years. However, there's a couple things I can tell you for sure are on it. Grand Theft Auto 5 obviously is going to be on that top 10. There's going to be a couple Call of Duty games on there. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019 is going to be on that list. Maybe Mario Kart could be there by now. Mario Kart 8, not impossible. I don't know that it is, though, but maybe it could be, because that game still mostly sells at $60, and that is tracked by revenue. So maybe, I'm not confident in Mario Kart. Like, I know Grand Theft Auto 5 is, and I know that multiple Call of Duty games are, like Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019. Once you get past that, it starts to be a couple tougher to say what might be on there. It might be almost all Call of Duty and Grand Theft Auto by now, to be honest with you. That could be almost the entire list. So it might just be like one or two other non-Call of Duty or Grand Theft Auto games sneaking in there. So that's going to be the majority of that list. Now, has Elden Ring already sold 18 million? Man, tough to say. It was at what, 13 million last we heard? 13.4 million, and that was by mid-March. It could. March, April, May, June, July. That would be around 4 more months. Could. It's possible. I don't know that for sure. 13.4 was our last number, and that was as of mid-March. Legs, though, have been extraordinary, so I would say it's possible. It's possible it's over 18 million, but I don't know that for sure. So it's possible, but who knows? John Eric Miller. What do you think of Nintendo's decision to sell physical Bayonetta 1 at $30? It is welcomed but odd in my opinion. Very low price point, first physical print on Bayonetta 1 on Switch and limited time only. John Eric, I'll be honest, I'm very, very happy to see this. I'm definitely planning on buying this. What I would also say, John Eric, I really wish Nintendo would do another batch of Bayonetta 2 as well. Even if you did like a limited run of them, I mean, Bayonetta 2 right now, physical, is like super expensive. Like if I go to Amazon, let's see what this game costs right now on Amazon for Bayonetta 2. Pretty sure it's still pretty freaking expensive. Yeah, I mean, the game's still like $60, and that's if you can find it. Some of them, like I'm seeing a listing here for the physical game plus the digital downloads. This one sells the digital download included, $75. So it's become pretty hard to find a physical edition of Bayonetta 2 as well. So I'm loving seeing Bayonetta 1 get a physical release because in the US that hasn't happened yet. I'm not sure if it happened in Europe. I don't think so either. I think that was only in Japan where there was actually a physical Switch card for Bayonetta 1. So really happy to see it. $30, I think, is actually a very fair price point. I'll be honest, I'm somewhat surprised they went that low, and I'm happy they did. $40, I think, I could have seen them even being able to get away with, which I know is steep, considering how old that game is. But, you know, Nintendo is not one to shy away from having expensive prices on things. So I'm happy to see it at $30, happy to see it get a physical run. I wish that they would also do another run of Bayonetta 2, reprint some of that. And it makes sense. Get the hype rolling for Bayonetta 3. I think they clearly want this to be the biggest game in the franchise. So smart move. Smart move to bring it out. Joseki. Hello, Benji. What games do you think will shine in the October of Madness? Yeah, let's talk about this. This is a fun topic, Joseki. October is complete chaos. Great month for gamers, but budgets for most aren't infinite. Okay, let's break down. Let me pull up this October calendar for you guys, because October is absolutely insane. Now, I've seen some people, so I always like tweet out the lists of these things, and of course you're always going to get people in the replies being stuff like, oh, there's only like one game I'm excited for there. The important thing to look at when you're looking at calendar releases like this is to always take yourself out of the equation. That's actually the golden rule for all sales analysis. I'm going to let you know that right now. One of the biggest failings for a lot of people whenever they try and look at sales analysis is they look too much from their own perspective. So if you want to have decently good analysis, and I don't claim that I'm amazing at it by any means, but I'm saying that's one shortcoming I see a lot. I see a lot of people be like, I'm excited for this game, so I'm going to predict it sells insane. Or I'm not excited for this game, so I'm expecting this game to bomb. Keep in mind, very rarely does an individual's perspective on what they're excited for have any relation to what the overall gaming market is. So it's one thing to keep in mind. Now let's look at October, because it is friggin' stacked, okay? In terms of just number of releases. It might not have, 4 Call of Duty sized games, but Call of Duty is here. In terms of just your lineup, total lineup, this is definitely the most stacked month since February. And arguably, even more stacked, considering that was really carried by Elden Ring and Horizon Forbidden West. There was a couple other releases in there too, like Sifu. So it was a great month. Don't get me wrong, February was an amazing month. But if you just look at like overall numbers, man, October might actually be the most stacked month of 2022. So let's look at this. This is just a rundown of some of the stuff coming out. You got Nier Automata coming out on Switch, the end of your edition. No More Heroes 3's multi-platform launch. You got Marvel's Midnight Suns. You got Nickelodeon Kart Racers. You've got A Plague Tale Requiem. Mario and Rabbids Sparks of Hope. New Warhammer 40k game. Persona 5 Royal. Scorn. Gotham Knights. High on Life. Mount and Blade 2 Bannerlord coming to consoles, Star Ocean The Divine Force, Bayonetta 3, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, Resident Evil Reverse. I mean, it's just ridiculous, okay? It's completely stacked. So what are the games that are going to shine here? The ones that are going to, I think, be the ones to keep your eyes on the most, clearly Call of Duty. I mean, that's not any surprise, right? And even though we saw Vanguard underperform by Call of Duty standards actually hugely, I am expecting the complete polar reverse opposite for Modern Warfare 2. I'm expecting this to be colossal. Potentially, we need to see, I'm not going to get too ahead of myself here, but potentially the biggest Call of Duty launch of all time. This would not surprise me because Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019 is the best-selling Call of Duty game of all time. That's right, even in the OG Call of Duties, no Call of Duty game ever sold faster than Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019. That game did over 30 million units in less than a year. So it could potentially, if the game's good, we might be looking at the biggest Call of Duty launch ever. We'll have to see. Like I said, I'm not guaranteeing you that yet, but it's in the running. So first of all, that's the obvious one. That will win the month in terms of numbers by a landslide. So what after that are games that I think could perform well? And like what Joseki's saying, what's some stuff that might get outshined because there is so much competition here? So first, let's go positive. What are the games that I think could do pretty well? I think that by expectation standards, considering it's not a giant AAA game, I'm expecting A Plague Tale Requiem to do pretty darn well. The first game was a super, super cult hit. Was made actually by a very small team. That game was made by, I believe, if I'm remembering right, it was under 100 people. Might have even been under like 80. It was a pretty small staff on that. So Requiem isn't going to have this gigantic budget. It's getting a lot of attention on it because of Game Pass. And also just a lot of people loved A Plague Tale Innocence once they actually got around to it. It was such a cult hit. So I'm not expecting A Plague Tale Requiem to, come out here and be the number 2 best-selling game of the month. But I think it is going to do actually pretty darn well considering how liked the first game was. Persona 5 Royal is an interesting one to me. I'm expecting that this game is going to do pretty darn good on Switch. Xbox, I'm expecting to have a pretty good amount of players, but I'm a little questioning how well it's going to actually sell since it's a Game Pass Day 1 title. So that's one to keep your eyes on, but Switch at least should do very well, and so should PC. So those two are locks. PS5 should do okay, but it was already on PS4, and it's backwards compatible already on PS5, so it's like, PlayStation's probably not going to be super impressive, but Switch and PC and Game Pass players could all be very strong. Scorn to me is a bit of a wild card because I love horror games, and I'll be honest with you, me personally, I haven't been that impressed with Scorn from what I've seen. To me, every time I see Scorn, I just think it looks gross and not scary. But again, like I was cautioning earlier, you don't want to put your own personal perspectives too much on something. So hard for me to say for sure, because I do see some people very excited about Scorn. So that's one, though, that I think is in danger of being overshadowed, though Game Pass could be good for it. Sales, though, I'm not so sure. Like raw sales, I don't know, but Game Pass could really help there. Gotham Knights, to me, is going to completely come down to quality. Gotham Knights, literally, who knows? If this game is actually very, very good, if Gotham Knights turns out in the end, because some stuff has looked a little sketchy on it, if it turns out that this is a great game in the end, it should do very well. People loved the Arkham games. This is similar. It is different, but it is the most similar thing you've had to a Batman Arkham game since then. And it can be played single player or multiplayer. So you got different avenues there. That's going to, more than almost any other game, I think, on this list is going to come down to quality because people are so unsure of some of the footage they've shown. So I think reviews will have a bigger impact on this game than something like maybe Call of Duty, right? So Gotham Knights, to me, I could see it going either way. I could see that game being very good and thus performing very, very well. Or I could see reviews not being great and it actually suffering for that. Bayonetta 3, I'm expecting to do very well by the standards of that franchise. Bayonetta has never been a huge franchise. And I think it's like, people have been waiting a long time for this. So again, Bayonetta I'm expecting to do well, but not crazy numbers, but very good for the franchise. And I'll wrap it up here in just a minute. I think Mario and Rabbids Sparks of Hope is, I hate to say it, I think that has a very real chance of being overshadowed. Even though the first game was super liked, I could see that game having great legs. So the legs for that could be excellent. But launch sales might not be super impressive because there is so many other heavy hitters this month, including Bayonetta on Switch that month. So I think legs could be very good. Like, I think this could sell for a super long time. But I don't know that its launch month will be necessarily great. And Marvel's Midnight Suns also, to me, is a bit of a gamble. I would say I'm more... For sales, I would say I'm leaning more towards Gotham Knights, selling more than Marvel's Midnight Suns, because Gotham Knights is more of your traditional AAA, core gaming title, whereas Midnight Suns is like a turn-based strategy card type game. Looks cool, but I would say that those are probably the two to me that might not have the most impressive sales at launch, Midnight Suns and Mario and Rabbids, and potentially, Scorn and Gotham Knights. It just depends. But it's a crazy month. It's crazy. Kelligrim. Sup, Benji? What's your opinion on the God of War Collector's Editions not having a disc? I'm not a fan. Do not like this at all. Seems to be getting more popular by sellers. Also, nice shirt. Thanks. Repping the PlayStation tank. So I don't like this at all. I think it's kind of actually hilarious selling a collector's edition of a console that includes a steelbook that has no game in it. Like, what's even the point? Why is there even a steelbook there? I guess so that later on you could buy a physical and put it in there. Here's what I think should happen. Because the argument, right, the main reason why you're seeing people be like, well, they can't include a disc in these necessarily because what about people with digital-only PS5s? Because now Sony has a digital-only console. I think one of the ways that you could help fix this, you could just do what they're doing because they're still going to sell out. It ain't the end of the world. They're going to sell out no matter what. Jotnar sold out in like 1 minute. A lot of this is bots, but it would have, listen, even if there was no bots, Jotnar would have sold out. But the fact it sold out in like 60 seconds at every retailer pretty much shows you bots. That's been a huge issue on everything lately. So you could just keep doing what they're doing. Because even if some people get upset about it, and I'm actually seeing quite a few people upset about it, in the end, is it going to impact sales? No. They're still going to sell out of these collector's editions no matter what. So if you're Sony and you only care about money and you don't care about customer satisfaction, and I'm not saying that is Sony's stance, but I'm just saying if that's the stance you take, then you can just keep doing this because you're going to keep selling out of these collector's editions even with no disc included in them at all. However, there are a lot of people that still do like to own a physical disc, even if they are becoming less and less important over time through things like updates and things like that. I think one way you could help this situation is say that, hey, ones at retailers, your normal retailer, your Walmarts, your Targets, your GameStops. If you're buying it from a regular retailer, it's going to include a disc. If you buy it from us, because now Sony has their own PlayStation Direct store, which they've gone on record, they're saying that they want this to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger for them. you can get the digital edition through us. So if you come to PlayStation Store and you have a digital only PS5 and you want a collector, we'll be selling digital only collector's editions through us, and then traditional retailers can sell ones with discs. I think that's one way that you could address this if you wanted to in your Sony. But if I'm going to be honest with you, Kilogram, I don't think they care, because I think that they know these are going to sell no matter what. And if people are bummed they don't get a disc with them, then oh well, so bad. I honestly think that's going to be Sony's stance on it. The main issue, I think, with God of War specifically is that they did the same thing with Horizon Forbidden West, which was a bummer. But the cool thing was that they had that edition that still had a disc with a steelbook, right? It was like the $100 one or whatever. That edition lacking on God of War, I think, is the main reason that a lot of people on God of War specifically are upset, because I think a lot of people would have pre-ordered that edition where it's like, hey, $100 or whatever, you get the steelbook, an art book, and you get a physical disc. The fact that there is no version of that, so literally the only version of God of War you can buy that has a disc is just the regular bog standard game. That is a big bummer. I mean, that is seriously a bummer. It's not the end of the world. I'm not like melting down about it, and I don't think most people are, but it is annoying. If you're someone that likes having physical discs, it's pretty annoying that there's just zero edition you can buy but the bog standard regular one and get a disc with it. So I'm not a fan of it, but Kilogram, I don't think they're going to change. I think they're just going to keep doing this with all the big editions, and they don't have to print discs for them, and people just have to take it. All right, Silence PP7. Benji, did you manage to get a pre-order in the God of War Jotnar edition? Are you worthy enough for Thor's hammer? Do you think we'll get to use it in the game? So I did pre-order the collector's edition, but I have no idea if I'm actually going to get it. So Jotnar, no. Jotnar sold out, like I said, literally in like 60 seconds at every retailer I looked at. I keep checking to see if Jotnar is going to back up, but I haven't seen it go back up anywhere but PlayStation Direct occasionally. So for now, I pre-ordered the regular collector's edition that does have the hammer. I don't have any idea if I'm actually going to keep this pre-order, to be honest with you. I literally only pre-ordered it. That way I have it in case I decide in November I want this. If I change my mind, I can just cancel it. So I would have pre-ordered Jotnar if I could have got a hold of one, but by the time I got online looking on stores, this thing was like gone everywhere. So I do have the collectors, the one that does have the hammer. It just doesn't have like, I think, a map and like a vinyl with it, but it does have most of the stuff. Pre-ordered that. We'll see if I keep it. I'm undecided because I am one of those weirdos that likes having a disc. But we'll see. Now, do I think we'll get to use Thor's hammer in the game? Yes, I think so. I think we will. I don't know that we're going to get it quickly. My guess is that will come later in the game, but I could see them doing that, yeah. I mean, with it coming in the collector's edition and all of that stuff, let's be real. I think we all assume we're going to... This is no spoilers. None of us know. I think we all assume we're going to kill Thor in this game at some point, considering one of the main draws of God of War is killing the gods. I'm assuming we're killing Thor at some point, so we'll probably use his hammer. Joseki. Also, thoughts on Resident Evil 2 Remake hitting 10 million and Sunbreak 3 million. Great results. Joseki just continues to show how Capcom is on an unbelievable run. You know, we've talked about this. It's ever since Resident Evil 7. And I don't think, I've said this before, I don't think it's any coincidence that from Resident Evil 7, whenever they introduced the RE engine, you know, to run their games, ever since that point on, what a run Capcom's been on. And I really do think part of it, granted, they've delivered excellent games on top of that. And not every game has been on RE Engine, right? I don't believe Monster Hunter World is RE Engine. Rise is, but I don't believe World was, unless I'm misremembering. But you've just seen their development pipelines. It seems like that RE Engine really helped them with development. They've been able to put out a lot of games in these recent years, and they just keep selling, and the quality's high. If you have a really nice, easy to work with engine that it appears RE Engine is for Capcom, that will help with the overall quality with your game because you're not struggling to get things running on your engine. So what a run there on Joseki. 10 million for Resident Evil 2 Remake is outstanding. One of the best-selling Resident Evil titles of all time now. Right up there with Resident Evil 7, which is also over 10 million in terms of like their original runs and not having like super late re-releases later on. Because like Resident Evil 4 has been on everything, right? It's been on like literally every platform just about ever. So, amazing results. Sunbreak 3 million this fast is really, really good as well, considering that's just PC and Switch, right? It's not available on PlayStation and Xbox, so that's great. Capcom's just killing it. Resident Evil 4 Remake next year is going to be gargantuan. I mean, huge, huge, huge sales for that. And I'm expecting, I've talked about it on here, I think Street Fighter 6 is going to do gangbusters numbers as well. So what a run. And then we got Dragon's Dogma 2 coming, and yeah, it's crazy. Capcom is just killing it. Absolutely killing it. To me, Capcom is the most impressive third-party publisher out of Japan right now. I think there's like almost no question. Square Enix is cool. They've done a lot of great stuff. You see Sega, a lot of cool stuff with Atlas. But to me, the publisher I'm most impressed of out of Japan right now, obviously not counting Nintendo since they're a platform holder. I'm saying third-party publishers. Capcom to me is the most impressive Japanese one. Cameron Swear. Let me make sure I haven't missed any super chats. I don't think I have, but I want to be sure. Oh, I see J-Cat's in chat. What's up, J-Cat? Great to see you in the chat. Great to see you, J-Cat. Thanks for helping mod the chat as well. Great to see you, J-Cat. Okay. Cameron swears. Seems like Switch was #1 in Europe again. Quite a hot streak there. Yeah, Switch has had a tremendous year in Europe. Also seems to be up again compared to last year, I believe. Any insight into Switch's performance there? Maybe more allocation. Cameron, this has been one of the great mysteries over the last about year that I honestly cannot quite explain. So I don't know. I don't know the answer for this because this is not what we're seeing in Japan or the United States. So why Europe has suddenly come online for the Switch, and not that Switch never performed well in Europe. It's always sold very well there for a Nintendo platform. But this to me is a bit of an unknown because the Switch is down year over year in the US and it's down year over year in Japan, and then honestly in both markets fairly substantially. Now both markets are still selling well, so to be very clear, it's not one of those things like it's down in Japan and it's down in the United States and like doom and gloom, this thing, not at all. It's still selling tremendous in both regions, but that's two of your biggest markets and it's down year over year in both. I could not quite tell you, Cameron, why Europe has just suddenly come online and is selling better than it has last year when you're not seeing that in the other two markets. I don't know. Could it be allocation? Could it be Europeans just coming more, getting more of a Nintendo fan base there? Because Nintendo has a big fan base in Europe, but it's never been like how it is in the United States, for example, in Japan. It's way stronger in those territories just by percentage-wise than it has been in Europe. That's been true for a long time. But so maybe the Switch's gigantic success is just naturally elevating people coming into the Nintendo ecosystem for the first time, maybe. But I don't know, Cameron. This is a great question that I don't have a ton of answers for. Why Europe is an outlier compared to both Japan and the United States, I don't know. I really don't know. It's hard to say, Cameron. Could be allocation. Maybe they're just getting more Switches there, but it's tough to say. Eddie Brock. How many years would it take to remake a second game in a franchise after remaking the first? Since assets can be shared, could we get a second remake 2 to 3 years after the original one? What time frame? I think this really depends on the games. So, there's no doubt in my mind that developing Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 1 made developing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth much easier for Square Enix, right? They already had a ton of assets from the first remake that they could probably carry forward into the second one and improve, right? It's not like they're going to keep the exact same identical cloud model and make zero improvements on it, but they can take a lot of their basis. They already have a ton of the art design figured out. They already know how they want these games to look. So it depends. If they're fairly similar, which Rebirth is, as we know, considering if you've, I'm not going to spoil anything if you've never played the original, but after you leave Midgar, the game opens up big time, right? So you're going to have a lot of different types of areas, whereas the first one was just focused in Midgar, so your art style was so similar. And in the second one, we can assume that there's not going to be much going on in terms of Midgar content. Maybe they'll do a little bit of stuff where you revisit Midgar a bit. Again, I'm trying to avoid spoilers here, but considering the way Remake Part 1 and the Intermission DLC works, I think we could see some stuff with a certain character in Midgar. So, I mean, there could be some stuff going on there, but it's primarily going to take place mostly outside of Midgar. So, a lot of those assets you can't carry forward, but character models and stuff you can. So, it really just depends. Depends on how similar and different the sequels between games are. I will say that really just depends. So it's hard to say, Eddie. I can't give like a definitive, like, no matter what, if you remake the first one, the second one's going to come out faster. I think there are times that could be true, but definitely times where if a second game is so much different than the original, might not quite work out. So it just depends. Michael Yu, do you think Series console demand is starting to wane? No. Series S has been sold for under $300 at various times during this year from different retailers. Wario64 tweeted this morning that Amazon was selling Series X at $443.77, sold out now. Also, if you look at Best Buy, Series X is still in stock at many physical Best Buy locations. Well, Michael Yu, what that tells you is they shipped a lot of Series X. As someone that works in retail, no. Series X demand has not slowed even 1%. However, I will say Series S demand has, but that I think is pretty normal because I think most of us, at least me, people that ask me about this, you can go back and look at stuff I was saying before these consoles were even out. I always said that I thought Series S was going to perform extremely strong during holidays, and then outside of holidays would sell a lot less than Series X did. Now, that was before we got to like crazy shortages and all kinds of stuff like that. So Series S carrying Xbox Series sales throughout the year now, the last, 2 years, that to me is not surprising in retrospect because there's been so few Series X consoles. So if you wanted a new Xbox, Series X was almost impossible to get, so you bought a Series S, right? But I think the raw demand, let's say that both of those platforms would have been completely in stock at all times this entire time, and there would have been no shortages. It's just, you could walk into a store and you could buy a Series X or you could buy a Series S. I always thought that Series X, especially in these early years, was going to be the more in-demand console for those core gamers. And I thought you would see Series S really shine during the holidays. Then, Octobers, Novembers, Decembers, that would be the time you'd really see Series S do it fantastic when like gift givers and stuff were there. So Series S demand, I do agree. I actually do think that the overall demand for it is somewhat slowing. Part of that is also, though, because that they can just make a lot of Series S's. Like, keep in mind, Xbox Series in the US has been outselling PlayStation 5 almost the entire year so far, right? We've now seen 2 months of the year where PlayStation came ahead. Came ahead in June, and it came ahead in January. But February, March, April, and May, Xbox was ahead all of those months. And that was mostly Series S. So Series S demand, I would agree, is dying down a little bit, but it's not necessarily one of those things like just no one wants an Xbox. It's just, I'm telling you, I work in retail. Series S hasn't had shortages now for months. So you're basically seeing not necessarily the demand fall off. What you're seeing is it meet demand, right? Like in a normal landscape, consoles should never be sold out, right? We're so used to that now with shortages, but like if you go back to the PS4 and Xbox One generation, outside of holidays, you could walk into any store and buy any console. Like, there's no such thing that these consoles should always be sold out. You should be able to walk into your local retailer and buy them at any time that you want to. That's the natural life cycle of a console. We've just gotten so used to shortages that now it seems weird when a console's in stock. But no, this is normal. This isn't demand dying. This is hitting what you're supposed to hit. So Series S, I would say the main thing is it's mostly met demand, whereas Series X still definitely not. I work in retail. I can tell you Series X is nowhere near meeting demand. So PlayStation 5 is not even close. Like PlayStation 5 is, I would say, of the two, Xbox is closer to meeting its demand because Series S is so much more in stock than the other three consoles. Disc PS5, digital PS5, and Series X. So Series S, of the two, Xbox is closest to meeting its demand since Series S is so readily available. But those other three that I listed are still nowhere close to hitting demand. And I would say if you're still seeing a lot of Series X at retailers and at like online and in store, that tells to me that there must have been a very big Xbox shipment. We have seen this, right? There was last month, we saw one of the reasons I was so confident that PS5 was going to have a great month last month was due to PS5 would be up for like hours at a time on PlayStation Direct. Like we were so used to it instantly selling out, and yet it was online for like hours at a time. You could order one. So the consoles are just, they're improving their stock. That's really the story. The stock is improving. If you follow a lot of people in the industry right now, and when I say the industry, I don't just mean gaming, I mean technology in general, y'all, these chip shortages are wrapping up. They're not over, but like the worst of us is definitely behind us. There's no doubt. We're actually getting to the point now where there's people that are like canceling their production orders. That's what's crazy. Chip shortages are going to be mostly figured out by next year. There might still be a little bit of shortages, but it's going to mostly be done by next year. I think we had a super chat. We did. Highlander here with a super chat with a 5. Thank you so much, Highlander. That's your second one. I really appreciate that. Bad news. I lost my Xbox Series X to my daughter playing Peppa Pig and Paw Patrol. Good news. I got my Switch back from her. LOL. Highlander, I am very curious to see how these games are going to perform on Game Pass. I am very curious if you can see Peppa Pig or Paw Patrol hit into the most played games on the service and on Xbox overall. I'm going to be watching this with a close eye because these are two of the bigger family-friendly, like kid-friendly titles you've seen hit Game Pass. There hasn't been a lot like that are like these really big. I know it sounds funny if you're an adult, right? If you're an adult, you're like Peppa Pig and Paw Patrol. Like what? But as someone that has a now almost 4-year-old daughter, I can tell you to kids, these are like our God of Wars, okay? To kids, your Peppa Pig is your God of War equivalent. So they're stoked about this kind of thing. So Highlander, that's very funny to hear. I'm very curious. Like I'm telling you, I'm going to be watching with a close eye over the next few days to see if you see either of those enter the charts. Because you're seeing a lot of people tweeting about it and stuff like, hey, my kid's getting to play like their first Peppa Pig game on my Xbox through Game Pass. So I'm curious. Highlander, good to see that you got your Switch back. And also for business reasons, let's keep an eye on that. Let's keep an eye. I'm very curious. If you see these games enter the most played list on Xbox, you might see Microsoft get more aggressive on trying to get some deals on these types of family-friendly titles. You really might. So it's going to be interesting to watch, Highlander. All right. Yoda Soda. So, Benji, if Rockstar remakes Red Dead Redemption 1, how many years do you think it will take them to finish it? Ooh. Could it release 3 to 4 years after Grand Theft Auto 6 as an appetizer until Red Dead 3? Great question, actually. So if this happens, it won't be till after Grand Theft Auto 6. I think they could make a remake in 3 years. Yeah, I think so. It'd be a big project, but literally everything is already, you already have the game. You just got to rebuild the assets, essentially. You have the entire storylines already written. You don't need to figure out the gameplay. You don't need to figure out your characters. You don't need to figure out what locations you're going to go to. Remakes are always easier than a brand new game. That doesn't mean that they're easy projects and that there's just like no work involved, but it's just like if it's a remake or a brand new game, which one's going to be the more difficult challenge? It's always going to be the brand new thing because you got to figure everything out. A remake you can do faster. So do I think they could remake Red Dead 1 in 3 years? Yeah, I actually do think that they could do that. Will it happen? I don't know. Like I said, it definitely wouldn't be until after Grand Theft Auto 6. We know there's all these rumors that there was a canceled remake recently. But that's what I'd say. I would say if they decided to do this, don't expect it till after GTA 6. That's next for them. And yeah, 4 years max. It should never take you more than 4 years to make a remake. I'm going to be honest with you. If it takes over 4 years to remake a game, you overscoped what you needed to do. Should not take more than 4 years for a remake. Absolutely not. 3 years, though, I can see. Unless it's something crazy ambitious like what we're seeing with Final Fantasy VII Remake, right? You get what I'm saying. If you're doing like a straight up one-to-one remake or pretty close to one-to-one remake, 3 to 4 years. Obviously something like Final Fantasy VII Remake, which is radical departure from the original games. It's still following the overall core story, but it's way expanded and they're actually changing the plot in a lot of ways. That obviously is different. But if they're just doing a straight, regular, standard remake of Red Dead 1, should not take more than 4 years and probably 3. Hummersley Ford. Sup, Benji? Thoughts on Netflix, Microsoft? Yeah, we talked about this thing. Do you see this partnership growing in the future? Well, there's some analysts that think that Netflix wants Microsoft to buy them. So, I don't know, though. I have to read more on the partnership. Do I think that Microsoft's going to buy Netflix? No. Netflix is in a lot of trouble, though, y'all. So the idea that Netflix is out there looking to be acquired, to me, isn't crazy at all. Have you looked at that stock price? Woo! It has completely collapsed. Let's look at Netflix stock. I mean, I'm sure it's up a little bit right now with some of the recent news. But let's look at the last 6. Y'all, this over the last 6 months, Netflix stock down 63.9%. Oh my God. 63.9% in the last 6 months. Do I think the idea that Netflix wants to be acquired is crazy? Nope. I would be 0% shocked if Netflix is trying to get acquired right now. But hard for me to see Microsoft doing that because I just don't think they could get it approved by regulators. They're going to have to be very careful, man, after Activision. Activision was such a big deal in terms of money that they got to be real careful. Fernando Harada. Benji, what do you think about the new PS Plus? I live in Brazil and games are expensive here. We loved the new PS Plus. That's great to hear. A lot, almost 1,000 of high quality games with a fair price. Fernando, that's really great stuff to hear. I love people giving me information from outside the United States because I'm in the United States, right? I do the best I can to look at global trends, but for a lot of people, if you live in a market, you're going to have a better idea about what reception is to something than it is here in the United States, right? So keep them coming. Anybody that's got perspectives from outside the United States, always let me know what you're hearing and seeing. I will say in the U.S., I don't see a big response to the new PS Plus. I definitely think that they've gotten some new subscribers to it, or at least, I mean, people upgrading. I don't know how many people weren't subscribed to PS Plus in any way before and now are, but I bet they've had a decent chunk of upgrades. But I would say, at least from my perspective, what I'm seeing in the United States, I haven't seen it as like a game changer here. But for a lot of markets where gamings are very expensive, Fernando, like you're mentioning here in Brazil, I hear a lot of people from Brazil tell me that consoles and games are extremely expensive. And there's other territories and countries like that as well. Could be a bigger deal there, yeah. Because I'd also heard in the past a similar thing with Game Pass. I had someone in Brazil tell me something similar, that people there that have Xboxes really like Game Pass because it saves them a lot of money. So could be big for a lot of markets, Fernando, yes. I think for it to be a truly big deal in the United States, they're going to have to get more of these day one launches. So if they really want to get that super high bar in the United States for subscriber growth, I think that they're going to need more stuff like Stray regularly hitting the service. They've already said they're not going to do their big giant AAA games day one, but I think they do need more day one content of some kind, like we're seeing with Stray here, to really boost those subs in the United States. But could be good for a lot of markets, yeah. Uncensored Maverick. Benji, good to see you. Good to see you, Uncensored. Thank you. Do you think, is there any possibility that Bloodborne gets a remake, seeing how successful FromSoft games are getting. I get asked this all the time, Uncensored Maverick. Sony will do something with Bloodborne. I don't know what that's going to be. If it's going to be a remake, if it's going to be a sequel, I could not tell you. But there's no way they just never do anything with Bloodborne again. I've always thought that was too crazy. There's just no way. If I had to bet money on it, I would say a remake more than a sequel, because I think that they're going to have a lot of trouble getting From Software to make an exclusive. Right now, after Elden Ring, the amount of money you're going to have to pay FromSoft for a sequel is enormous. Potentially the most expensive in the industry. Right up there in terms of third parties. From Software now is an incredibly powerful negotiating position. They literally have, you heard what I just said at the top of this chat, Elden Ring is now one of the top 10 best-selling games ever in the US by dollars tracked. That they are in such a power position that I'm not going to tell you that no one can get an exclusive out of them, but to get an exclusive out of From Software, you are going to have to throw a fortune, hundreds of millions of dollars. I didn't say that wrong. You didn't mishear me. Hundreds of millions of dollars to get them to make you a sequel or an exclusive. Not impossible, but it's a big number. It's not going to be one of those things, hey, we'll give you 30, 40 million to make an exclusive for us. It's going to be like, yo, 100 million plus. And it could go into the hundreds. Like, is Bloodborne worth that to Sony? I don't think so. I mean, Bloodborne would do great, but do I think it's worth giving from, multiple hundreds of millions of dollars potentially to make it? I don't know about that, So it's hard to say. I think if we ever get a Bloodborne sequel, it's not going to be developed by From Software. I've said that before, and I hope I'm wrong. But I have a feeling that if we get a Bloodborne sequel, it's going to be developed in-house at Sony with maybe a partnership with From. So they could get it cheaper by making a deal to have some oversight from, but it's primarily developed by Sony. So maybe you could see a scenario like that, but I don't think we'll ever see Bloodborne 2 completely developed by From Software as an exclusive. I'm honestly very doubtful about it. They've become too big. Not impossible, but it's just Sony's going to have to pony up a lot of money. So we'll have to see. A remake, though, they could do in-house, just like they did Demon's Souls with zero help from. So I think a remake is the more likely scenario, but I think we will get something. Either a remake or a sequel, or potentially both. We'll have to see. Danger Man. Hey Benji, I was wondering about Elden Ring's legs. Very good in the US, but seems poor in Europe. Suspect a reason why. My main question would be, are all those European charts including PC? I know some of them are, but that would be a factor because I can tell you that a huge bulk of the reason that the legs are so good in the US is because Steam. Man, I have a hair. Sorry, I have a hair floating in my face. Like, let's look at something again really quick on this NPD chart. And I know some of them do. So to be very clear here, Danger Man, I know some of those charts include PC. But let me check something really quick out of curiosity. Dang, yeah, Elden Ring's still number one even on Xbox and PlayStation. Absolutely absurd. But PC is also a big factor as well. I suspect a reason why. Not really. This happens sometimes, right? We talked about this on last chat where someone was asking me about God of War, and there was someone in the chat saying how God of War had always been like the mascot for Sony, and I'd mentioned how like God of War wasn't big in Europe. Like it wasn't. It was nowhere near the size it was in the US. And that changed. God of War 2018 made it super popular in Europe, but that wasn't the case beforehand. Sometimes, even though the US and Europe have a lot of overlap, to be honest, I hate to say it, 9 times out of 10, if a game's doing good in the US, you can say it's doing really good in Europe, or vice versa. They're very similar markets. They're not identical, And obviously Europe is encompassing many countries, so you see some division between countries, right? There's some countries that lean way more one way than another, but just as a whole, if you look at the European charts and you look at the US charts, they're often very, very similar, with a few changes, but very similar. So Elden Ring just seems like it might have slightly hit bigger in the US than in Europe. Keep in mind, this game has still been utterly gargantuan in Europe, so it's not a scenario like, oh, it all sold in the US and then Europe did bad. Trust me, this game sold millions and millions and millions of copies in Europe. But it might have been a little bit stronger in the US too. I don't think there's any real big thing we have to dive into about why. Just the US liked the game a little bit more maybe. Miles Morales, Sonic Team seems to be clueless. They're trying hard to please everyone, and it always ends up in a dud. What do you think the best solution for 3D Sonic is? Is it really that hard to do right? So I am the worst person in the world, Miles, to ask for an in-depth Sonic view because I have never played a 3D Sonic game. You just heard that correct. I have never played one. The only Sonic games I can ever remember playing are Sonic the Hedgehog 2 on Sega Genesis. Right? Isn't that the one where it's the big 2 on the cover and it's got Tails and Sonic on it? Yes, I've played that one. And the only other Sonic game I've ever played in my life is Sonic Racing. So I couldn't tell you because I've never played a 3D Sonic game. Sonic never connected with me. I don't like the gameplay of Sonic. I know that's blasphemy because there's so many huge Sonic fans. I don't like the gotta go fast and blurring through levels. I don't know. I just never got into it. I've been wanting to fix that, because I know it's a big hole in my my history of games, right? There's a few franchises that I'm weird like that with. Kingdom Hearts is one of them. I've never played a Kingdom Hearts game. But Sonic is also another one of those weird ones where I haven't never played a Sonic game. I've played Sonic 2 and the Sonic Racing, but I've never played a 3D Sonic. None of them. So I couldn't tell you from a personal perspective, here's what they're doing right and wrong because I don't play the games. But I will say I agree with you, Miles, that from an outsider's perspective, it does seem like the Sonic fan base is always disappointed in these games. Always. They'll still buy them and play them, but they're never, from what I can see, blown away with them, especially the 3D Sonics, right? So what can they do? I have no idea. I'm the worst person in the world to ask this, Miles. This would be a better question for someone that is a huge Sonic fan, but I couldn't tell you because I don't know the franchise. I will say Frontiers seems to be being very mixed reception, but I'm seeing a lot of buzz on social media, so we'll see how it sells. Krogan Android Developer. I love that name. That is sweet. Benji, are you hearing anything from the GPU side about how nervous AMD and especially NVIDIA are for next-gen card demand, given crypto crash? Interesting. Yeah, we were just talking about this with the chip shortages. They're clearing up fast. High inventories used and new and inflation gas hike on top. So Krogan, I personally do not have a lot of contacts within the GPU side of the industry. I have tons of contacts at console platform holders, tons of contacts at third-party developers and publishers, but that specific area, right, the GPU side of PC, I don't really know much of anyone on that side of the industry. It's just a totally different thing than what I'm covering most of the time. I can tell you, Krogan, the one good news I think for consumers here, because you're making a great point, I think that these cards are going to have to be priced pretty well because the demand has crashed. Like I said, chip shortages are rapidly improving because demand has gone down. And I think they can't go too crazy with pricing because now there's a ton of used cards flooding the market. You have inflation like you're mentioning. So people are more strapped for cash than they've just about ever been in recent years. I think they can't price too aggressively. Now, does that mean I think these next cards, because they're coming soon, are going to be ultra cheap? Like you're going to just go out and be able to buy the most powerful new NVIDIA GPU for $500? No, they're still going to get those crazy 800 whatever dollar cards. Krogan, I don't think they can go too crazy. I think if they try and go too aggressive with pricing here, it could bite them in the butt, and you could see those prices drop very quickly because demand is dropping hardcore right now. So I think they're still going to have some expensive cards in the market, but you might be able to get a better deal than expected whenever they come out. So we'll have to keep an eye on that because that's going to be a very interesting thing to watch for sure. One advantage for NVIDIA is that it's been quite a long time since the 30 series came out. Like, when did the freaking 30 series come out? When was that? When did the 3070 drop? All right, the 3070 and 30. Yeah, the very beginning of 2022. Wait, no, that's the TI. Yeah, September 2020. So it's like, yeah, September 2020. Right, they were announced earlier in the year, it looks like. Yeah, release date, September 17th, 2020. So that's the advantage for them. The advantage, Krogan, is they've gone a very long time without a card series refresh. You know, you're looking at basically it's going to probably be 2 years between cards. So they've had obviously like the TIs and stuff since then, but not a whole new series. So that's going to help them in terms of demand. People have been waiting a while, but the thing that's going to hurt them is the used cards and just inventory, like the demand dropping. So we'll see, Krogan. I think the main thing we'll see is these cards won't be too crazy on prices. I think we had a super chat hit. 2 super chats. Matt Duffy with a 2. What's up, Matt? Benji's your last name Sales. No, a lot of people think it is, which is funny. I hide my real last name because unless I'm going to get paid to cover games, I don't really want to just throw my real name out there. Like right now, there's no real reason for me to use my real name. Listen, there are some very weird people on social media, okay? And like, I can tell you one horror story that happened to me. One time, and most people are super cool, but there are some strange people out there. And one time, this was a few years back now, someone did figure out what my real name is, which isn't the end of the world, like whatever. I put it this way, I'm not like super going out of my way to hide it, but it's like, I don't want to just throw it around out there if I don't have to. Someone figured out what my name was, and they contacted my employer that I work at, and they sent my employer a bunch of photoshopped images that were faked about me saying things online that I had never said. And the company did a big investigation on it, and I didn't even know this was happening, right? They didn't tell me. They did an investigation without telling me. And they pulled me into the office, and they're like, hey, just to let you know, this happened. We ran an investigation. We found you innocent. We didn't see any signs of these things that this person was saying that you're saying. But just to let you know, someone tried to get you fired. They like wrote a big long note to my employer about why I should be fired, why I should be terminated, and they included these images that were photoshopped and right? Like there's some weird people out there, dude. So I don't throw my name around unless I have to. If I was getting paid to do this for a living, like, you know, then it makes sense for me to use my real name because that's what I get paid to do. So it makes sense people will know my real name. But I don't go out of my way to use it because even if 99% of people are cool, 1% of them could be crazy. And that 1%, once you start talking about big numbers, 1% of people is actually a pretty decent sized number. So at some point, maybe I'll just be throwing around my last name a lot. But no, right now, Benji-Sales was a handle I came up with in about like 30 seconds without even thinking. Because I used to post a lot on forums. And then I was like, all right, I'm going to start talking on Twitter. I talk about video game sales. I'll just use sales. And like I said, I put like zero thought into this. I know I cover a lot of stuff besides sales now, but I just created the handle Benji-Sales, and then it kind of took off, and it's like too late to change it. But no, it's not my last name. A lot of times people think it is my last name, but it's not. Highlander with, I think this is your third super chat. Holy cow, Highlander. Don't go too crazy. I really appreciate that. That's very kind of you. But holy cow, man. You don't got to do 3 super chats. I really appreciate that. Hey, Benji. What do you think of the photos from the new space telescope? Love it. Amazing. With radio and TV, we have beamed into space. Think aliens roll up their windows and hit the gas going past our solar system, LOL. So I'm a massive fan of space, astronomy, all of this stuff. I literally spend all day listening to podcasts about space. I made a list on Twitter you can go see on some of the ones that I listen to. Event Horizon, John Michael Gaudier, PBS Space Time, Isaac Arthur, Anton, I can't remember his last name, but I'm like huge into this stuff, dude. So Highlander, I've been waiting for James Webb for many years. The pictures are utterly spectacular. The resolution's incredible. It can see things that Hubble never could, not just because of how much more powerful it is than Hubble, but because of the wavelengths of light that it can see way into the infrared spectrum that Hubble never could. So we're going to be able to see things out of Webb that we've just never even dreamed of, y'all. Think about how amazing those pictures were, and those were just like from this thing barely getting up and operating, and they just took them mostly pretty quickly. They're thinking now that this thing could last up to 20 years, whereas the original was a decade they were hoping. Now they're thinking it could last 20 plus years. The science we're going to get out of it's unbelievable. Now, in terms of aliens, my theory on the answer to the Fermi paradox, because everyone's always like, you know, what's the answer to the Fermi paradox? And I listen to all sorts of debates and stuff about this. Why? If anyone that doesn't know what the Fermi paradox is, basically it's an equation that was written down that if the universe is this many years old and there's this many stars, and let's say there's, you know, a certain fraction of those stars have habitable planets, with the amount of time, why do we only hear silence? We see no sign of other technological life anywhere. There's zero sign right now of technological life anywhere else in the universe that we've seen. We haven't seen anything that points really towards Dyson swarms, Dyson spheres. There's a few candidates that maybe, you know, could maybe, but we haven't seen any definitive sign of anything, right? Not just with radio signals, but also anything we've looked at. No definitive sign of technological life. I think the answer to the Fermi paradox, a lot of people really think it's such a hard thing, and I think it could be. We don't have all the answers, but here's my thought on it. I think that life in the universe is very common. So microbial life, even lower level intelligent sentient life might be very common. I think the real answer to the Fermi paradox is technological civilizations are very, very, very hard to get to. If you look at Earth's history, this planet has been here for billions of years, and only in the last 100-ish have we had a true civilization that is big enough to make noise out into the universe. Think about how many things could have gone wrong in that amount of time. An asteroid hits, disaster, we get wiped out. Think about how many species of life there has been on this planet, and none of them would have been noisy enough for anyone else to tell that there was life here, right? We had billions of years to get here, and we just now are on the scene. And I know the universe is billions of years older than that, so you still think there's got to be some, but I think the main answer to the Fermi paradox is that there probably are other technological civilizations out there, but they're probably very rare. Very, very rare. Even whenever you're talking about the sorts of huge numbers of billions and billions of stars in the galaxy, I still think, even with that number, the odds of technological civilizations pretty low. There's probably some, but it's probably not teeming with technological civilizations. I bet we find microbial life everywhere. I bet there's going to be microbes all over the friggin' universe. I bet we're going to find animals of some varying degrees. probably fairly commonly in the universe. But technological, that's probably pretty hard. That's probably a pretty freaking hard step to get to. So that's my thoughts on why. All right, Benji here with a 5. Hi, Benji. Thoughts on platform manufacturers announcing games via Twitter or blog posts as Nintendo and Sony did with Bayonetta 3 and God of War Ragnarok? I think it just makes sense. I think this is the way the industry is going to start moving. I talked about this, I think it was on the last live chat. I had mentioned that one thing that companies really need to start doing is just following more of the Hollywood model. And that's just being way more open about stuff, you know? That might get somewhat annoying if you're like, and whenever I say you, I mean the proverbial you, Benji, not necessarily you particularly, but the proverbial you. If you're someone that likes these like condensed, really big shows, you get very little info except for at like these showcases, so you get it all at once and super hype and blows your mind. It might get a little bit annoying because those shows might not seem as mind-blowing as they did, you know, in the past. But nowadays with social media, and it's so easy to just get stuff out there, that most stuff, I think, the vast majority of announcements that we're going to see in the industry now are just going to be rapid fire whenever these companies want to do them, not waiting for a showcase. I think showcases will still have their place. I think you're still going to see big yearly shows from, you know, these companies. But I think the vast majority of your announcements now are just going to be like this: Twitter posts, blog posts, random trailers going up, randomly announcing that games are in development, because that's the way Hollywood does it. There's no big Hollywood showcase. Like, everyone just waits to their movies. Don't show any movie, and you know, for 6 months we got to keep it all a secret, and then we're all going to get together, and then we're going to announce it now, and we're going to give you 50 trailers and blow your mind. That doesn't happen, right? There's a little bit of that. Like, there's a Comic-Con, which kind of gets some cool announcements and stuff. So there's still a place for showcases, but there's no real reason to just like try and keep everything secret and hidden and only announce stuff around certain dates. And it makes no sense. So I think you're going to see more and more and more and more of this stuff, Benji. So like I said, I don't think that the showcases are completely going away, and you know, but I think you're going to see a lot of this stuff more and more and more as time goes on. And thank you for that super chat. Super chats are clear. How long have I been going? Probably going to go for about 15 more minutes, and then I got to bounce because I got to go to work. Jason Benjamin, Benji boy, why do you think Nintendo doesn't do a pro console a few years after the launch, or even a casual and pro console on launch? Why do they always have old tech in their hardware? Well, Jason, the main reason why tech in their hardware tends to be on the weaker side is Nintendo's all about pricing their platform well. That's like the main strategy behind their consoles. Now, of course, they always want to have amazing first-party stuff. I'm talking specifically hardware. They always want this hardware to be easily accessible for consumers. Sony and Microsoft have instead pushed more towards power. There's benefits and non-benefits either way you look at it, right? The benefits for Sony and Microsoft is by going with Series X's and PS5s, and before this generation they still had $400+ consoles, is that they can sell their platforms on these, you know, cutting edge experiences. So they can get a certain type of gamer to their platform by that's what you're offering. Nintendo has never pursued that route, or at least when I say never, not in recent years, right? If you go really far back, they had pretty competitive hardware with their, you know, competition, but really ever since just about Wii and DS on, right, it's been pretty underpowered compared to their competitors. But that's because they're trying to launch these consoles really at like $200 to $300, right? It's why you see Switch Lite at $199, regular Switch at $299. It's why the Wii wasn't the Wii $199, or was it $250? Like, they don't want to have super prohibitively expensive hardware. They want their hardware to be easily purchasable by the biggest number of people. They're not pushing for tech. Now, why don't they have a pro console a few years after launch? My theory, because there's been all of this debate about pros for years now, I don't know if A, that was just all made up, because I even heard these rumors, or B, I'm not talking about what's going on right now, by the way, because the next Switch is in development. This isn't rumors, this is fact. Now, however they position that platform, we'll have to see, but dev kits are out there. I know that for a fact. dev kits are in the wild for a new Switch. Again, though, I don't know that that's Switch 2, so don't quote this as Benji confirmed Switch 2 is coming. I don't know, but there's a dev kits out there for something. So I'm thinking either A, the reason like we never saw a Pro 2 years ago or whatever was because it was all made up, or B, Nintendo was exploring the idea and just decided against it. And they were like, you know what? With the current situation in the world, we don't really know how we would position a Pro console. We're going to just not make it. Maybe we were debating it. We were asking some devs what they thought about it and decided against it. So I still think whatever this new Switch that's coming isn't a Pro. I think they will market it as a successor. I think it will be a lot of cross-gen games. So people might think of it in a way almost as a refresh, because I think you'll still see games on the regular Switch for like 2 years. But I have a feeling whatever's coming right now next isn't a Pro, but the actual successor, because it's due. It's due. Switch is about to be 6 years old. It's due for a new a successor like next year. Not this year, but next year it's pretty due for a new successor. Telegram with a really nice comment. Just says, sucks about the car, man. Hit me up if there's anything I can do to help. Thank you so much, Telegram. Very kind of you. Great to see you, buddy. Ahmed Saeed, which sold more units in June, PS5 or Xbox? PS5. PS5 outsold Xbox. Second time this year. January, PS5 outsold Xbox, and we're talking NPD, and June. The other months, all Xbox was ahead. I believe. It was January, right? Was January the month the PS5 was? It's only the second month, but it was either January or it was February. Might have been February? No, I think it was January. But yes, in June, PS5 sold more units. Ghost Tunnels, hello there, Benji. I'm curious, do you think PlayStation should look to acquire small and medium-sized studios instead of big studios like Bungie, or a mix of both? I think if they're going to keep doing acquisitions, a mix. I've talked about it on here a million times, so I won't go too in-depth, but I'll be very surprised if Sony doesn't buy Ember Lab. So that's a smaller size studio. But they need some big ones too. So a bit of a mix. If you notice, though, acquisition season has very slowed down lately. So I think acquisition season might be coming to a close. Not completely. You're still going to see some acquisitions. You've even seen Jim Ryan talk about it and stuff. So I could be totally wrong, but I'm not hearing the same sort of fervor behind the scenes as I heard, a year ago about acquisitions. So I still think you might see a little bit of acquisition activity happening, but I think it's slowing down. There's a lot of worry right now that we're about to head into a recession. So that's going to, with inflation and recession fears, that's going to make people a little worried about spending too much money. So we'll see. C7 Aguilar, big hug from Honduras, man. Love your content. Big hug to you in Honduras. Thank you so much. It's awesome. We've got Brazil in here. We've got Honduras in here. Amazing, amazing. I love doing it. Thank you so much, C7 Aguilar. Very kind of you. I hope you're doing great over there in Honduras. Joseph X1. Benji, I think the partnership between PlayStation and Ubisoft on the new PS Plus is interesting. Do you think Ubisoft can be bought by Sony? Well, keep in mind, Ubisoft's also making Game Pass deals with Microsoft. Like, we just saw Assassin's Creed and stuff go on there, and they've talked about how there's going to be, like, Uplay integration with Xbox. So, I would say that whatever's happening right now between Sony and Ubisoft is no sign of that, because Ubisoft has actually currently got their hands in multiple baskets. They're making deals with Xbox as well. So, no. But I will say, do I think that Ubisoft is going to get bought? Yes, I've been saying this for a long time. Ubisoft is the most prime candidate for acquisition of any publisher right now in terms of like cost for what you get out of their workforce and IP. I'll be very surprised if we go another 5 years and no one's bought Ubisoft. Now, that might not mean Sony. That might not mean Microsoft. That might mean private equity. I'm just saying someone. I'll be very surprised if Ubisoft does not get bought out in one way or another in the next 5 years. They have a ton of workforce, they own a ton of IPs, and their market cap is small. So, you know, you never know. I could be wrong, but I've been saying this for a while. I think they get acquired by someone. Like I said, it might not be one of the platform holders, might even be another publisher, or it might even be private equity, but someone. Ubisoft's just, it's hard for me to believe that they won't. Johnny G, what's up, Benji? JCat, thanks for helping mod. I'm seeing a whole bunch of deleted messages, which means that JCat is kicking butt modding. Thank you so much, JCat. Dangerman saying Blizzard games have huge retention. Yeah. I mean, the fact that Overwatch, like I said, is still in your top 30 games on Xbox, and that game, I love Overwatch. It's had zero content for years, like besides just seasonal events. We've not been getting new maps. We haven't been getting new heroes for years. And the fact it's still in the top 30 shows you, yeah, Blizzard's retention is insane. They're insane. All right, I'm just trying to pull like one or two more, and I got to go. Casual Gamer, PlayStation only has 19 studios. Is that number big enough in your opinion? Or do you think they should grow to 25 to 30 studios so that they can start pumping out more first-party content more frequently? Off the top of my head, I don't know if the 19 number is 100% accurate because I don't know off the top of my head the exact number of studios at these companies. So I'm going to assume that you're right there on 19, Casual Gamer. They could use a few more. Like I said, the fervor for acquisitions seems to be dying down a little bit, I think because of inflation and recession fears. But I still think Sony snags a few more, yeah. A few more. I don't know that they're going to go all the way up to 30 studios, but if they're at 19 now, could I see them getting another 3 to 4 studios over the next few years? Yes, I could see it. A lot of people, thank you, Raku, for saying, hope you're feeling good. I think I answered the second part of your question. Aviv Shanir, what's your take on a handheld Xbox device like the Steam Deck? I think it would make sense if they could get one out that has the native processing power of a Series S. So in order to do that, you might need to wait another couple of years to get one out that would be affordable. So my thought is I think it would actually kind of make sense. We've seen through Switch and now Steam Deck, there is still definitely demand in the market for handhelds. I don't know that Microsoft will do this because their main strategy right now seems to be just using your mobile phone and streaming to be your mobile Xbox. And I think that's a great thing and that they should be pursuing. But gaming on a mobile device, I've done it even with some pretty good handheld controllers. Through streaming, it's cool, it works, but it's still not like the most ideal way to play. You know, having a natively installed game is really nice, which is something that Steam Deck's doing. So Aviv, I think it would be an interesting thing for Microsoft to look at, but I don't think they should do it probably until they have like they could make something that's like around a Series S level power. And in order to get there, they would need a few years. Series X handheld ain't going to happen for a real long time. Very long time. Technology will definitely have to improve a lot. But Series S, it's not impossible actually to get into a handheld, but I think the tech is still a couple of years away. And when I say Series S power, I mean probably at like 720p, right? We're not talking like at 4K. But I'm saying like run games that Series S does. If you could get it to where it does that on a handheld at 900p or something, maybe in a few years. We'll have to see. Batman Forever's asking about Gotham Knights sales. Like I said, that one I'm not going to put a raw number on yet because to me that depends so much on reviews, more than most games right now. Because I think so many people are unsure how they feel about it. So all going to come down to reviews on that one for me. I think that's going to be a very big factor. It's not always a big factor in all games, but I think Gotham Knights is one of those that the pre-footage has people so divided that I think it will be a factor. If it reviews well, it could sell really strong, but reviews need to be good. Oh man, one or two more. Timmer, what do you think will be the next big acquisition in the fall of this year? If someone does, I think Microsoft won't acquire anyone. That's been my prediction ever since Activision Blizzard was announced, and that has rang true. I had a lot of people telling me I was wrong. Really? I was wrong? They still haven't acquired no one. So, I said that a long time ago. When that deal got announced, I had a whole bunch of Xbox fans hitting me up. Benji, what's next? What's next? You know, who's Microsoft getting next? And I always said, like, I don't think anyone until this deal's done, if they still do anything, because they don't want to gamble on this getting shut down. If you announced Activision Blizzard and you're getting all this scrutiny and you're Microsoft, and while you're literally being investigated, you'd go, and we're now also buying this studio and this studio and this studio. There is no quicker way to get regulators to be like, oh, really? So not only are you trying to buy this thing that we're literally investigating you on right now, but you're also going to go out and buy 3 more studios. Interesting. Well, what if we just shut this down? Like, I always said that I'm not going to say Microsoft will never acquire anyone, but Xbox fans should not be expecting that until this deal closes. I think the one potential factor there would have been if they wanted to get Creative Affinity to help with Halo. But I think even that, they're probably waiting until after this deal closes. I don't think Microsoft wants to gamble anything until this deal's done. So Microsoft, I don't think you still see any gaming acquisitions until Activision Blizzard's over. And that won't be over, I don't think, this fall. I think there's a chance that it will complete this year. But if it does complete this year, I think it'll be the very end of the year. November, December, something like that. And it could be next year. I'm just saying if it gets closed early. I don't think it'll be till the end of this year. So Xbox, I would say nobody for the acquisition this fall. For PlayStation, Bungie's now done. So, I mean, they could, because Bungie was a big purchase, so now that's a done deal. So they could look at somebody. I don't know. Sony might, though. Sony might now that Bungie's done. Wouldn't shock me. Who would that be? I don't know. It's really hard to gamble and say. I would say if any of the platform holders make an acquisition right now this fall, it's going to be Sony. So we'll have to see. Venom Harness, WB Montreal is working on a second DC game. Do you think they will be able to release it? Or do you think if Gotham Knights underperforms, this project will never be released? It really depends on, I've talked about this before, David Zaslav doesn't play games. And when I say doesn't play games, I don't mean like he doesn't play video games. I mean the dude is a very intense businessman. He's already canceled numerous projects in film and TV. Gaming is only a matter of time. David Zaslav is going to figure out what works in gaming. He's going to figure out what doesn't work in gaming. And if he can't sell these studios off in bulk, which is what they want to do, if they can't sell these studios in bulk, he can't get the money he wants for them. David Zaslav is going to take a hard look at gaming, and he's going to say, all right, this works. You're making money. You're good. This doesn't work. You're not making money. You don't work. I'm telling you. He will close studios or he will sell studios. All you have to do is look at how David has ran the rest of the business since Discovery acquired WB. Gaming is up next. So part of the reason probably gaming has been able to dodge this, like why you haven't heard anything about what David Zaslav's doing with gaming right now, probably a very big part of that is because none of these games have launched yet. They were all way too far in development to be canceled. So we will probably start getting a pretty good idea about what's going to happen with WB games once these games start coming out. And I expect you're going to hear some news after that. So, Gotham Knights, Hogwarts Legacy, Suicide Squad. Let's see what happens with these games. And I think you'll start getting some answers, whether good or not so good, after this batch comes out. Because then he'll have a better idea of what's going on with the business right now. Danger Man, wonder which will sell more worldwide by the end of the year, Modern Warfare 2 or Elden Ring. If we're talking calendar year, Elden Ring is almost guaranteed to sell more. Call of Duty would need to sell basically 20 plus million units in 2 months. Because I think Elden Ring will definitely be over 20 million units by December. So lifetime, it's a bit more of an interesting question because, like I said, if Modern Warfare 2 sells like Modern Warfare 2019, you're talking over 30 million sales in less than a year. So, but actually, to be honest with you, Danger Man, calendar, so by December 31st, might be Elden Ring, just because it has so much of a head start. Call of Duty will have to sell 20 plus million units in 2 months. It's not impossible, but holy Jesus. If it sold 20 plus million units in 2 months, my God. So probably Elden Ring, to be honest with you. Probably Elden Ring. Because that comes out the end of October. So it's essentially got 2 months to do it. All right. I think I got to go. I've been going for a long time. 2 more. I'm cutting myself off. 2 more questions and I got to go. Ahmed, I actually kind of agree with you on this one. Why is The Last of Us 2 selling 10 million in 1.5 years considered underwhelming, but Resident Evil 2 selling the same in 3.5 years is considered a huge accomplishment? Yeah, The Last of Us 2 sales aren't bad. So I kind of agree with you on that, Ahmed. I always thought some of the reaction to the 10 million sales number was weird. To me, a lot of it came from people clearly having a vendetta against the game. So I think one of the reasons why you saw people be so intense about it is because it launched so big, right? 4 million units in 3 days. So clearly legs weren't spectacular considering you had almost half that number in the first 3 days. So that's part of it. Part of it is that the launch itself was so big that it was pretty front loaded, right? You're talking almost half of its lifetime sales in the first 3 days. Not quite, but almost. So that's definitely part of it. 10 million is a lot for a game. Now, The Last of Us 2 is also definitely a lot more expensive than Resident Evil 2 Remake. I can almost assure you that. Some of the rumors is that The Last of Us 2 is one of the most expensive games ever made. So that's also a factor. But 10 million is not a bad number for that game in general. And it's not done selling. That was in 1.5 years. It's still going to sell a few million more. Now, do I think it's going to ever match the first Last of Us? No. I don't think The Last of Us 2 will ever sell as much as the first Last of Us game. But some of the reception to it selling 10 million was, I think, coming from a bad place and a place of bad faith. From some people. Not everyone, but from some people, yes. All right, one more. And then we got Mexico in here too. Amazing. Brazil, Honduras, Mexico. Oscar Bueno, Benji, greetings from Mexico. Greetings to you in Mexico. Incredible. Great to see you. There's a lot of good questions in here, but I just can't take them all. I've got to go. I have to go. I wish I could answer more of these, but I gotta go. I'm literally picking one random thing. One more random. I gotta go. I'm sorry, but I have to go to work. A random one here. Benji, do you prefer episodes dropping week to week or all at once? To me, this is pretty obvious answer in terms of business. Week to week is the better strategy. It's basically like a lock. It is the better strategy. I think that Netflix eventually, I don't know if they're going to like do week to week for Netflix releases, but you're going to start to see gaps on Netflix releases. You're already starting to see that. Stranger Things had that month gap between the first chunk and the second chunk. You saw them do something similar with Ozark, I believe, where that final season was split in half. I think they're going to, at least on their big show, start to split them in two, maybe even up to three, drop 3 episodes at a time. In terms of business, we have pretty ample evidence now through things like Nielsen ratings that for most series, for a business model, week to week just works better because you give time for these properties to generate word of mouth. Look what happened with The Boys this season, right? The Boys, every single week, you saw people on Twitter. I don't watch The Boys. I'm going to be honest with you. This is the hot take that some of you watching the show might have. Way too many people I trust say The Boys is an amazing show. So I am sure it's an amazing show. I will tell you from an outsider's perspective, the show looks unbelievably cringe. And I know it's not cringe. So to be very clear here, I'm sure some of you watching this are The Boys fans. Reviews are through the roof. Way too many people I trust say that this show is great. I'm just saying from an outsider's perspective, the show appears cringe and try hard from if you haven't been watching it. Because all I see is random stuff like hero-gasm. Like if I hear a word like that, I'm like, sounds like something made for a 14-year-old. But, you know, I'm sure it's great. I'm sure. There's way too many people I trust that like this show. But look at how The Boys discussion week to week just kept going up, kept going up, kept going up. A lot of these shows, Umbrella Academy, when you drop them all at once, it disappears. People talk about it for 3 days and then it's gone. You never hear about it again. Where's people talking about Umbrella Academy right now? No one's talking about Umbrella Academy. That just came out. What happens with these binge shows, I'm just talking about business model here. For the vast majority of them, they drop, people binge the heck out of it in a couple days. You get a couple days of great discussion, and then it is gone, out of people's minds. And why is that a factor for business? Because that also means that they're not necessarily telling people to go watch this show. Whenever you have a weekly release, you have people freaking out, talking on Twitter about it, talking on their Facebooks about it. Oh my God, this last episode was so insane. I can't believe what happened. And other people see that and now they're like, man, people are freaking out about the show. I got to get caught up on it. And it keeps it in the discussion for months, potentially, depending on how long a show airs. When you binge it, it's here and then it's gone. Now, there's a couple real big exceptions. Stranger Things. Stranger Things discussion is still enormous on Twitter. But that's because the season was like out of control incredible. And it like just caught the freaking world off guard to a degree on how much people loved it. And same thing happened with Squid Game. So it's not impossible for these shows that drop all at once to do like, you know, huge discussion for longer periods of time. But they've got to be like true cultural sensations to do that. The vast majority of Netflix shows that come out, no one talks about these shows after a week. And maybe like the hardcore fan community does, but the rest of the world does not. They're gone. So I think for most business models, it makes way more sense to do a weekly release. In terms of how I personally feel, I kind of like the weekly release too, but it was also nice on Stranger Things getting to binge it. I don't hate the model like what they did with Stranger Things, where you drop a bulk of episodes, then you have a gap, and then you wrap it up. So that's kind of nice because you get to binge quite a bit in a row, and then you get to step back and process it and talk about it online with people while you wait for the end. So I think that model is not terrible. I actually kind of like that in between. But I would say I like either that or I like weekly. I don't really like binge everything at once because it's just here and gone. All right, everyone, I got to call it there. Sorry I didn't talk more. I'm sorry. I've been going for a really long time. Thanks for all the super chats. Thanks for all the questions. I got to get ready for work. I got to bounce like right now. Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks for all the kind thoughts about my car crash. A lot of you were very kind on Twitter about it. Thanks for showing up to the chat this week. I know it wasn't a super heavy news week, so it was great to see you guys. And subscribe to the channel if you're not already. We do one of these chats every single week. I will be back next week. Follow me on Twitter if you're not already. I'm Benji-Sales on Twitter. And I will see y'all either on Twitter soon or I'll see you here on YouTube next week. Stay safe, play some games, and I will catch you all later. Bye, everybody. Bye. Peace.